Hello, creators, and welcome to Rediscovering Be Something Wonderful, where we revisit timeless classics from deep within our video archives. What if everything you've ever wanted has never been waiting somewhere out there in your future? What if it has always been yours, and the only thing you've ever needed is the willingness to unconditionally claim it here and now? In this video, you'll rediscover why fulfillment is never in the future and can never be created through effort or process. Why your I am awareness naturally determines the bridge of incidence. And why trying to force life only keeps your attention on what appears to be missing. You'll discover that your desire isn't something you become worthy of. It is something you simply awaken to here and now. Because everything you've ever wanted is already yours. Now, let's rediscover the extraordinary simplicity of consciously creating the life of your wildest dreams. Welcome back to Be Something Wonderful. About 4 days ago, I had a session with a client who just followed up yesterday. And about 4 days ago, she was new to conscious creation, even the teachings of Neville Goddard. And she goes, Tom, I'm just not sure I believe. I feel like sometimes I'm in my wish fulfilled, but then something happens and then I'm not in it. And I haven't gotten any results really from what I'm looking for. My husband kind of thinks I'm crazy. And I said, okay. And this was about 4 days ago now. I said, well, let's talk about what would be something that you just think wouldn't happen, wouldn't ordinarily happen, that you wouldn't believe. And she goes, oh, okay. For instance, my husband never brings me flowers, ever. I always wanted to receive flowers. I go, okay. But there seems to be resistance with that. So instead of imagining your husband bringing you flowers, just imagine flowers, for instance. Imagine being overwhelmed by a bed of roses, right? Because roses represent love, or represent someone showing you love, right? And so we talked about that, had some fun with it, and then she goes, okay, I'll try that. I go, if it's, if the imaginal lack or the state akin to sleep, as she was talking about, sometimes she struggles with that. I go, don't struggle with that. Just have the assumption of flowers. Just think flowers, overwhelmed with flowers. And so yesterday, we had a session late yesterday, and yesterday morning, her and a friend went to shopping. They went to the mall, and in the mall was a guy just walking around with a bunch of flowers, and just went right up to her and gave her one. Now, she wasn't the only one. There were others. That's what he was doing there. He was, I guess they had a video and they were having fun with it. But her friend didn't get one. It was just her. And what was the flower? It was a rose. So we had a session and we had a lot of fun with this. So she goes, okay, I think I'm getting it now. And so this is really what I want to cover today. This idea that wish fulfilled, or the idea of fulfillment, is already who you are. So it's not efforting to get there. It's not efforting to feeling it. It's not efforting it to imagine it. It's not even efforting to assume it. That consciousness is already there. It's already in all states of potential. You've just got to direct and intend what you want without all the resistance, without all the struggle. The other thing that came up, and this came up several days ago, but then I saw a comment or a question I noticed on the channel from a subscriber. This idea that when you're feeling pressure to make decisions or take action in 3D reality, when it feels contra or opposite of your wish fulfilled. And I just want to say that we've talked about this. And I know some of you are providing some great answers to that. And it is true. Here's the first thing that I want to say. It's true that your decisions and actions don't create reality. I've talked about this before. It's very popular, right, for spiritual teachers to say that it's the state of consciousness. So it doesn't matter what you do, or it doesn't matter what actions you take. You're going to manifest or create the reality that with the state of consciousness that you're being, with who you're being, and the state of consciousness you're occupying. And all that is true. So I want to acknowledge that that's all true, and we've talked about that on the channel. It's true that your decisions and actions don't create reality, that it's always your state of being and consciousness that's reflecting in 3D, right? Decisions and actions, however, do matter in this sense. They matter in the sense that they point to or reflect the state of being that you're occupying or your dwelling place. So if you're feeling pressure to make decisions or to act, it's not the action or decisions that's the big deal. It's the pressure you're feeling while you're doing them or while you're taking that action. Do you see it? That's what will steer you off. Because why? That indicates feeling pressure to make decisions, feeling pressure to take action, indicates that you're not in a state of wish fulfilled, that you're not in that state of consciousness. So those actions do matter. And those decisions do matter. Why? Because you're making them from a state that you're not in wish fulfilled. So they're not going to align up. They're not going to align with whatever you want. Do you hear this? That's why they matter. And remember, 3D action and 3D decisions do have a cause and effect relationship on that plane, on the 3D plane of reality. So there is some cause and effect. But on the other hand, decisions and actions don't matter when you're in your state of fulfillment, when you know that you're in your wish fulfilled, and that you're going to make decisions, you're going to follow some actions, and you're going to follow the script. Right? Without feeling pressure, you're just going to follow the script without disturbing it, without resisting it. Accepting those things as one possible outcome while lighting up your future, while choosing your film role. That's the difference, right? So pressure decision, state of non-fulfillment. That's what that indicates, right? So it's not that decision. I know we say this, a lot of spiritual teachers talk about that actions and decisions don't matter. It's the state of consciousness. All that's true. But they do matter if you're feeling pressured. They do matter if you're not in that state of consciousness and you make them from that unaligned state, right? Decision to follow the script while imagining and living your desired end leads to state of fulfillment, leads to your manifested reality. You are in a state of fulfillment, right? When you make decision or you follow the script, you take actions following the script, right? You're now aligned. So the only question is, am I aligned or not aligned with what I want? Where's my focus? Because focus creates reality, right? Focus and attention creates reality. Awareness creates reality. Right? Reality comes out from that consciousness, right? So whatever you're focused on is your state of consciousness. Whatever you're putting your awareness on becomes your state of consciousness you're occupying, right? Decisions and actions have a cause and effect in the 3D plane of reality for sure, right? But they're puny and small compared to what you can create when you create the structure underneath. Right? The structure of the state of consciousness you want to occupy, or in other words, what you want to focus on. So I wanted to hit that. So let's take this on in terms of the question from my client, the one that manifested. Again, she didn't get a rose from her husband. Her husband doesn't send her flowers. She said it. My husband never gives me flowers. So I don't think she got over that belief. But what did she get? She got a flower, right? She manifested a rose, right? So she gets it now because she had no resistance with that. The only resistance was that her husband never gives her flowers. So she can't get past that belief, that assumption that he never does, right? But she did get a flower, so that's pretty cool. The state of wish fulfilled is beyond space and time. Remember, it's not about maintaining a state of wish fulfilled in 3D reality. It's about going beyond state and time and know that fulfillment is your natural state, right? Creating, manifesting, perceiving, and receiving, in other words, your own reality begins and ends in the end. I've talked about this before. This is based on the teachings of Neville Goddard, but every other spiritual teacher talks about this, right? It begins and ends in the end. Beginning at and living in the end makes linear time irrelevant. It doesn't matter, right? You're now beyond space and time. You're in fulfillment. So when you say that you fall out of fulfillment, you're pointing to linear time, because fulfillment is forevermore. Fulfillment is your natural state. You're never out of fulfillment. You only think you can be. It's only a thought. It's only an assumption. Do you get it, guys? So, and assumptions and thoughts are made in that linear time that you can fall out of that state, right? There's no such thing. That's who you are, right? All processes, imagining, affirming, visualizing, are not to try to make something happen out there, which my client was really trying to do before, right? To have the experience, but to realize I am the experience. She became that experience, right? She just imagined flowers all around her. She immersed herself in the experience. It wasn't to experience it. It was to be the experience. I am the experience, not to experience the end, but to be the end. She became the end. Right? She didn't imagine it that her husband was giving her flowers. She already wrote that off that it could never happen. But she imagined flowers. She became that end. She lived in that end. So to be in a state of wish fulfilled means to be fulfillment. Right? It's your natural dwelling place as consciousness. Right? It's your natural dwelling place as fulfillment. You shrink the experience of fulfillment by this. I was in a state of fulfillment or wish fulfilled, but then something happened, or then I couldn't hold it, or I wasn't sure if I was doing it right, or is this the right process, or what else should I be doing? All of that shrinks that experience because it's who you are. You're trying to put consciousness in a box, and it can't be put in a box, right? Fulfillment is causeless. It is the consciousness from which everything appears and into which everything disappears. In other words, fulfillment is consciousness, right? It's causeless. It's the consciousness from which everything appears and which everything disappears. You are like that diamond in the rough, right? Only the rough is invented by you. You're a diamond that shines anyway. You shine because that's who you are. Diamonds just shine. You don't have to make them shine. You just shine as a diamond. That's your light. That's who you are. You don't have to search for fulfillment. You don't have to process your way there or struggle or affirm your way there. You are that, right? So, and here's the diamond. There you are, right? But every time you say, I was in fulfillment then, or I've got to keep processing or affirming to get there, you're putting that diamond in a box. It's like the Power of Now with Eckhart Tolle. When he talked about, I've talked about this story before, but he opens I love this story, so I'm going to tell it again, because we're going to see it in a new light today. But he talks about, at the beginning of the book, a very powerful opening, about a stranger seeing a beggar sitting on a box on the street corner. And the stranger asks him, starts talking to him and says, hey, what's in the box? He goes, oh, I don't know. And he goes, haven't you ever checked? He goes, oh, no, I've been sitting on this box for 30 years. And he goes, aren't you curious? He goes, oh, no, I'm sure there's nothing in it. And then, of course, the stranger talks him into opening up the box. The beggar looks, opens up the box, and for sure there's gold, more riches than he could ever imagine. But he was sitting on it the whole time. That's what you're doing, right? You're that diamond, though. You're that awareness. You're shining. And you're trying to put it in a box. When really in the box represents all your assumptions, all your beliefs, all your thoughts, all your feelings, covering it up. Even when it's a nice box. Hey, think about this. Even when it's a lovely box, you're still boxing in that awareness of who you really are. Right? Most of the time, though, it's a box of limiting assumptions, limited beliefs, thoughts of what we can't do, thoughts about what could be, but we don't do it, right? It's that I am awareness is that diamonds. Diamonds represent divinity, invincibility, purity, and faith. You don't have to make diamonds shine. That's who you are. You are that I am awareness. That's your true nature. That's fulfillment. Fulfillment can't be put into a box, but you try. right? You try with these assumptions. Thoughts, feelings, conditions, assumptions, beliefs are the temporary packaging or box. Sometimes that box is lovely. Sometimes it's judged unlovely. Many times it's judged unlovely, right? The diamond or emptiness inside is the priceless, luminous, ever-shining presence. It's rare, right? That's the diamond, your awareness. Wow. Right? And think of it. Those thoughts, feeling, conditions, assumptions, and beliefs don't really cover the diamond, although it gives that illusion. Because those are all within, everything comes out of consciousness. The same with those thoughts, feelings, and assumptions. Everything comes from that awareness, comes from that diamond. Yet you have these beliefs, and that covers it up, or these assumptions, or those thoughts, right? So let's hit this a little bit more. And this is the quote from The Power of Now. I love that book. It's a classic, right? Those who have not found their true wealth, that diamond, right, which is the radiant joy of being, that diamond, right, and the deep unshakable peace that comes with it, are beggars, right? Looking outside for scraps of pleasure or fulfillment, or for validation, security, or love, while they have a treasure within that not only includes all those things, but is infinitely greater than anything the world could offer. Wow. Such a powerful quote by Eckhart Tolle. Think of it. We're looking at, there's scraps. Anything we look in the 3D world from others, right, are scraps of love or scraps of security, all of that. Because the real treasure is that diamond. That diamond that's always shining, that fulfillment. That's real fulfillment. That's the real diamond shining. So you are not the beggar. You are the awareness or the consciousness of fulfillment out of which the beggar appears. So who you really are is the diamond. You're not the packaging. You're not the box. You're not the beggar. It's only your exclusive identification with the box or the beggar that makes you feel like a beggar, or makes you feel trapped by your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. Instead of making or imagining or affirming your wish fulfilled as a means to some end, as an attempt to change the packaging, right? Enjoy the process as the end. The experience of fulfillment, conviction, and gratitude is the end you're looking for. Because when you do that, then everything else will be added on to you. You can make beautiful packaging, right? With that, the diamond's shining, right? Imagine that. Enjoy the processes as the end, not that some end to change something or to get something out of 3D. That's so big today. So big. Persisting and living in the end is not about trying to maintain your state of fulfillment long enough in linear time for it to manifest or appear a 3D reality. Because I know I've covered this many times in many videos, but I really want to hit it. This idea of persistent is that I'm going to persist until it happens, right? It's not about that. You are in the end. Live in that fulfillment because that fulfillment is who you are. What is it then? It's about recognizing and knowing and making your state of wish fulfilled, that diamond that you are, a natural part of your state of being or your dwelling place, because it already is. You, the diamond, are always shining. It's timeless. Right? It's okay to leave the throne. Just know that you are king playing a beggar. Do you hear this? It's okay. You're the king of your reality. And it's okay to leave the throne. But know it. Know it that you're playing the beggar, that you're playing the role. Right? And then you're in control of your reality. Now you're the king of your reality. Right? That's so big. So what's the key then to living in the end, to living in fulfillment? Don't try to be fulfilled. Hear this. Don't try to be fulfilled. You already are. Trying to be fulfilled implies that you're not. And then you can't ever be what you're not. Do you hear it? Remember, because you already are all that. You already are an infinite being. You can't help. You can only be something that's not that. Right? So allow it to unfold. Allow the diamond to shine. Don't try to get rid of the unwanted or what you created. Just stop creating it. Don't try to get rid of these conditions or things you don't like or things you don't want because you created them. Just stop creating them. See the wholeness of the experience of fulfillment, right? See the wholeness of that experience that surrounds you and contains and permeates everything. Because that's the wholeness, that's the fullness within you. It permeates everything, right? If you want love, be love. If you want abundance, be grateful, right? Make gratitude the gratification you're looking for, right? Allow your new reality and desired end to dominate your state of being. Wow. Allow it to dominate it, right? That's living in your wish fulfilled. That's going beyond time and space. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification button, like and share our videos. That's how we get our message out. You can follow us on Facebook at Be Something Wonderful. We have a Facebook group called the Be Something Wonderful Ambassadors. You can join that group. It's an open group at facebook.com/groups/Be Something Wonderful. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Tom Kearin. And you can visit our website anytime that has all that information and more at tomkearin.com or besomethingwonderful.com. Until next time, creators, with great love, with great light, and infinite gratitude, this is Tom. See you soon.